and welcome to the Old Hombre podcast with two of your favorite hosts, Mencey Moreira and
Andrew
Kanikuru. Yeah, stop the music. Welcome to El Hombre podcast episode 4. Four, yes, already.
We're still going.
Yeah, we're still going. We're still at it, even though we've got no viewers. For those of you who are watching, the podcast is about the following. We have work life, business, and retirement. That's it. Yeah. That's what we talk about. Why have we done this? Because I am a 36-year-old guy in sales, and it seems to be the only thing I talk about in my spare time. And the same thing with Andrew. Andrew is not 36, so I don't know if he wants to disclose his age.
35.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, welcome and thank you for joining us. Yes. Hopefully on this episode.
This is getting so professional now, honestly.
Well, you know, we're growing a little bit. Hopefully the sound is perfect and we don't have to redo anything. But Andrew, how have you been? It's been a very, very interesting week for us.
It has been an interesting week. I've had some ups and downs.
Okay.
The biggest up is that I'm going to be a grandfather.
Hey! I didn't expect you to declare that here.
I want to tell everybody that anybody that will listen. So that was my biggest up. And this morning I got a verbal offer for a job. So
Wow, we'll do that again. Yeah. Andrew's on the up. I have also accepted a job offer. So just all cheering. This podcast is gonna get spicier and spicier as we go along because we've got a lot of stories to tell. Right, Andrew?
Yeah. I think, from both of the announcements that we made, not the grandfather element, that could, be later on in the line when we touch on retirement and things like that. But I think, the fact that we've both successfully been offered new job roles, and not because we wanted to change, me probably, but we're forced to, for things beyond our control. Nothing to do with performance, nothing to do with attitude or fitting in or anything work related. Simply something that happened to the organisation that we were working for, and we found ourselves unemployed officially. A week ago?
Yeah.
So we can count ourselves very lucky in the respect that we've both got something to move on to. But I think that's certainly things that we could potentially touch upon either today or at another sessions about experiences on interviews, experiences on hunting jobs, experiences on working for certain types of organisations. And when I say types, I don't mean industries or anything like that. I mean size of organisation or organisation in their at certain points of their growth.
Yeah.
And things like that, and how it can really affect you as a person, as a sales representative, and how you approach and do things. We can touch upon those another time as well.
Yeah. It's definitely like worthwhile doing. I mean, the thing is, right now, the software world, because Andrew and I work in software. The software world is becoming very, very. It used to. Banking used to be the glamorous job, right? It used to be a banker and
uni bank.
Yeah, exactly.
You left uni, went bank.
Exactly, and if you were in the investment, the investment arm of a bank, you used to get free shower gel, free gym, company car. It was the most prestigious job out there, really. Like it automatically you were in the hundreds of thousands. And then all of a sudden, that died down a little bit, and it became tech. Banks, basically, most organizations became tech organizations, and then you had like this kind of era where everyone wanted to work for Google, everyone wanted to work for Netflix. They call it the FANG for a reason, right? And that's Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, etc., etc. And
Yeah.
you know, these people, these organizations, they would have massive campuses, ridiculous, well, not ridiculous salaries, because I mean, in fairness, those organizations were like dominating the world, and they still are to some degree. But
but also there was the name attraction, but also, you know, you saw things like, you know, the Google campus, you know, where they had bean bags and table tennis and, you know, coffee and this, that, and other, and it was a way of life, not just a job.
Yeah, exactly. You used to be at the dinner table, and if someone said, "I work for Google," it was like, oh my God. And that's changing a lot nowadays, right? It's changing a lot nowadays, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a big magnifying glass on the tech sector. We've alluded to that in previous episodes, and Andrew and I, we've very much focused on startups. We've had, I mean, Andrew more than myself, has had a few stints in organizations that are post startup, so that have actually IPO'd, organizations like Okta, etc., etc. But mainly we've done startup gigs, and when we say startups, it's relatively organizations that are between 3 and 5 years or 6 years of being founded, and there's all sorts of incredible positives that come behind working with organizations like that. But there's also risk, and I think that's what Andrew is kind of shining the light on right now, and I think it would be a good idea to share a little bit on that. So whilst we're actually on the subject, and we will take a break just for like general news headlines as well, because Andrew, you've been telling me that you've got a couple of things you need to get off your chest. But you know, Andrew, let's go into my Instagram. So you know, I've been hoarding Instagram clips, and I think this one actually resonates with what we're talking about, right? So let's listen to this guy. Right. So, hold on a second. Let's get a sound on this bad boy. All right, I'll come back in.
How did we fumble remote work so badly? Because all y'all wanted to get online and tweet about how you was getting paid to do nothing. You could just keep your mouth shut and collect the bag. Oh, I don't do anything. I sit here, I may work 30 minutes a day, if that. I've been getting paid from the whole 9 to 5. Acting like the employers and the people that own the business don't have Twitter and social media as well, and wasn't also going through the pandemic. This is 2020.
Right. So, going back to Google, going back to these startups. Now, the first phase was being able to work for an organization where you get a company phone, you get a 6-figure salary, right? You get to go to the US for onboarding. You get to fly all over the place, right? It was literally the dog's bollocks working in tech, right? And not only do you get a massive base salary, you also get commissions on top for doing your job, right? And it's, you know, when I went into sales, I was just like, wow, you know, like prior to working in tech, I was working in charities, right? So I used to do fundraising, and not, when I say fundraising, not necessarily shaking the bucket and asking people for money. It was corporate fundraising. So I'd be employed by charities to go in there, do marketing campaigns, and manage the different facets of fundraising. So we used to, you know, write letters to other corporations and ask them for money. We used to do charity to end user, so to support a campaign. So that would be the shaking the bucket thing. So we used to manage companies that did that for us. We used to also do high net worth individual fundraising. And Andrew, I kid you not, right? I would be raising hundreds of thousands, if not sometimes millions, and my pay was 35k, right? 40k, right? And I did this for about 5 or 6 years, and I remember a time when I would dream of the day that I would get a 70k salary, like that was, you know, and 100k a year. That was like, oh my gosh, I've made it, right? That, like, I used to come home and tell my mum about each promotion I'd get, and would celebrate for every 5k or 10K increment that I got in terms of promotions. And then my personal story is I was actually in an organization that did burns restoration. And it was the first time that I actually got exposed to technology because I had to manage the database, right? So it was a charity that didn't have such a sophisticated fundraising department. So I ended up taking on these new responsibilities. And actually, Andrew, you know, it was my saving grace. So there's a lesson there, right? You know, a lot of people say, I'm only going to do, right now, there's a lot of attitude. There's mentalities around, I will only do what I get paid for, right? And I think, what was that terminology that?
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting, when you just do the bare minimum of what you're asked to do. And there is, there's a lot of support for it because there is a level of truth to it, right? There's organizations they're making millions and millions, right? And, you know, they're giving you a salary sometimes way below, you know, the value that you bring into an organization. And then on top of that, you know, they're asking you to do all these extra things and they won't give you the title or they won't credit you for it. And a lot of people are just like, oh, sod that, I'm just going to do my job, right? But then for me, that saved me because I could have said that. I'm not managing a database. You know, that's get yourself an IT person or pay me, right? But I took it on. And what happened was I had the chance to recruit a database architect. And me and that database architect, so he was in charge of like segmenting the data and finding out where we could source.
Do I know this guy?
Yeah, I don't want to say his name just in case, right?
No, but it's such a weird and funny world, isn't it? Yeah, here we are, two people from two different backgrounds, 20 years, let's say, difference between us. And we both knew somebody in common for different reasons.
Yes.
Which sort of then sort of brought us together again for different reasons. It's just I just find it amazing how things turn out. Anyway, sorry.
You know, they say, is it like you're only a couple of people away from like a celebrity or something? You know, and I don't know why that.
It's probably a Colombian saying.
But it's true. It is a small world, which is why you've got to treat everything with dignity. You're not trying to say and just because. But yeah, to finish the story, back then I was doing a full-time job, 9 to 5, and then after my job, I was going to take care of people with learning difficulties, and I was basically doing an evening shift, some cases even to a night shift. And it just so happened that the database architect that we had recruited lived around the area where I was working, taking care of the people with learning difficulties. And he just saw that I was working so much because I was trying to save for a house back then. So I was working minimum like 16, 17, maybe 18 hours a day. And he was just like, how much do you make again? So I said to him, look, I'm on about, 37, 38K, and I'm doing this extra gig to see if I can raise another 10 or 12K on top so I can actually save for my house. And he was just like, you're too good. Like, you've got too many skills to be working so hard. Like, why don't you work in sales? Like you can make money. And I was just like, what? Like, knocking on doors and whatnot. It's like, no, like, corporate sales is basically what you do now, except you're going to be doing it for the, software companies. So he actually introduced me to my the first company that I worked for where I met you, Andrew. And he introduced me to his next door neighbor that happened to be my future manager. And that's how I broke into sales. But it was incredible, Andrew, because I went from working 2 jobs, 15 hours a day, to having 1 job. And, they matched my salary because I was a business development rep. So for those of you who don't know what a business development rep is basically the person that's in charge of reaching out to new organizations and people and inviting them to look at your product. And
it's virtual door knocking.
Basically,
it's virtual door.
Yeah. It's the lowest kind of category, the lowest entry point into sales. And that's where I met you, Andrew. You trained me in that because you were doing that. You were almost a team lead for that when you were, so you onboarded me and everything. But it's incredible that at the lowest stage of sales in a tech company, it completely eclipsed what my earning potential could be in what I would call the real world. That's how great the software, working for tech companies is and was, right? It's still it's still in that category, but it's falling out of that grace now, and we'll touch upon that. But I went quickly into doubling my salary, right? So I was doing 70, around 70K just by doing my 9 to 6, right? And that was entry level, right? That was within a matter of months. But yeah, it was just a great sector, right, back then, right? There was a lot of money flying around, and I look at the numbers that we were doing back then. Like I was booking 12, 15 meetings a month with different massive organizations. And Andrew, you were like a rock star. You were doing 30 a month sometimes, right? And we were making serious cash on commissions. That's now not the case. You'd be lucky if you have a month with 10 business meetings, right? Because the market's, there's just much more competition out there, right? There's much more competition. The bravado around new tech companies has died a little bit, and customers are a bit fed up to some degree of so many events, so many dinners, so many, they're refusing, they're pushing you away for free dinners, right? When there was a time where that was a luxury. But Google, Facebook, and all these organizations, I remember, Andrew, that when we started it, when I started in that company where we met, there was 1 or 2 members in that company that were allowed to work from home. They would waltz into the office once a month, twice a month, and everyone would go, "Hey, oh my God, this is incredible!" The top salespeople, they would come in their suit. I used to call them suit wankers, blue suit wankers, right? They'd come in and everyone would suck them off, and it would be like, but it was reserved for the high elite number hitters. It was the big FU to everyone, because it was like, I do so well, I can work from home.
Yeah.
But that changed a lot. Like, as with COVID, everyone went remote, right? Yeah. Everyone went remote. And even prior to COVID, you started to get these new startups that were setting up in new geographies like the UK, Europe, etc., and they wouldn't open an office in that country. They would basically recruit and they'd work with an organization that can act as their representative in that specific country where they wanted to set up a new market. So they didn't have an office, and you'd end up as a remote worker. So I was actually doing remote working 2 years before COVID, Andrew, right? And oh my God, like, it felt, you just realized how you were getting ripped off. I mean, think about it, Andrew, right? We used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, rush, have a shower, be ready by 6:30, leave the house, get on a bus or a train for 1.5 hours to get to work half an hour early, and then start the day. Then we would stay in the office, do what, have our business meetings, do all of our stuff, etc., take a break, which came out of the hour. It wasn't a paid break, right? And then work till 6. And those were our 8 allocated hours. And then we'd spend another hour and a half getting back home. So you had left your house at 6:30 and you were coming back home at 8. Imagine shifting from that to being able to do your stuff in the morning, take your kid home, to school, have time to mentally prepare for your day, and then get on your laptop and start work at like 1:45 from your house. And then that's not to mention the money that you're spending on meals when you're out there. It
was a pay rise, mate. It was a pay rise.
And a significant one at that.
Oh, the money so both me and my wife both worked in London, as you know, and the train money that we saved alone was a significant pay rise for the household income.
Of course.
Just the train.
And
Yeah,
then
as you was going to say, the coffees, the
the extra
sandwiches.
hours,
Yeah,
being
yeah,
able to clean your house, like just do all these things. It was amazing, and that was honestly, Andrew. I had realized that I was paying such a tax. It's like a tax
yeah,
on tax. So
yeah,
I'm for remote working. I'm for remote working, right? But these guys took the piss. The
yeah.
likes of Google, the likes of these people, Andrew. They were literally recording themselves saying, "Hi, I've woken up in the morning and this is my daily routine." And they did yoga classes till like 10, granola work sessions in the morning at the Google campus. They'll talk about going to the gym for 2 hours, basically bragging online that they were only working for about 2 to 3 hours a day.
But do you, just to put a spanner in the works, both you and I experienced the non-remote side of things where they would walk in at 5 to 9, go and make themselves a coffee, go to the kitchen, get their granola or their overnight oats that they've put in the fridge, then sit at their desk, munching away, checking their phones, but they're at their desk, so they're working, right? And they never started working till about that. And you know who I'm talking about, young lady.
Many of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They,
And yeah, and it frustrated people. But no, I get what you're saying. It went beyond. It's gone beyond that.
yeah, well, the thing is though, if you're shit, you're shit, no matter where you are. Like the smell will follow you, right? And that's my point, Andrew, right? There's a lot of people like, oh, we should ban remote working. Oh, we should do this, we should do that. Look, I'm not here to champion remote working. I think the office is brilliant. I personally think a hybrid environment where you're going to the office about 1.5 days a week is good. Maybe 2 days. It's brilliant, right? Fully remote working can be brilliant too. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, if you're shit, you're shit, right? If you're in the office, you're not going to be any more productive, or you're not going to become an automatically more a productive member of the team by being in the office. We've seen people completely time waste being inside the office. But what does change is when you're at home, you can be more of a tusser, right? Like if you're rubbish worker, it really puts a veil on it, right? So I don't think remote working kills productivity if productivity is already there. It can enhance productivity, but it can definitely enhance unproductivity. I don't wastage is you know what I mean.
I think it's a really interesting thing. I think a lot of it depends on the job that you're doing, but also who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I think there are certain people that are, irrespective of if it's remote or in the office, that fly under the radar.
Yep.
Yeah. Look busy. Yeah. And do the bare minimum that they can. This. Quiet quitting is nothing new. Yeah, it's been going on for years, but it wasn't talked about. Then you get the people that are really driven, and they're either driven by challenging themselves and self-succession and self-measurement or whatever, but also some are driven because of restrictions, financial commitments or whatever. So I think it depends on that, but also I agree with irrespective of what role it is, that the hybrid environment for me is the best of both worlds. You get to meet people, which you need to do sometimes.
Yeah.
You get to learn successes and learn from failures and be a bit more in touch with what's happening with the organisation that you're working in. But there are a lot of people that take the absolute mickey. I did it. I'll be honest with you. When I lost interest in one particular company I was working at, I met the challenges that they gave me, and then they didn't reward those challenges as they promised. I thought, sod it. Yeah, I'll just tick a few boxes during the day and then go and do whatever I want to do. And then there's the opposite side. There's the people. I get up at 5 o'clock. And then I go for a 15-mile run, and then at 5:30, because it only takes me half an hour to do 15 miles, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone to Australia. I'm on the phone. Then there's, the opposite people that just work to live, or live to work, or whatever.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I just think I think people that are good, they will work when there's a good chance of winning, right? And
I think there's a huge opportunity. Sorry to cut you. I think there's a huge opportunity for companies to really, add some dollars to their top line by the savings that they make. Yeah.
And I think that's why it's still going on, Andrew. I think that's why it's still going on.
But treat the remote workers almost like they're in the office.
Yeah.
Don't neglect the camaraderie. Don't neglect the benefits and stuff like that. Some companies do it really well. My wife works at a company, and occasionally she'll get a box of cookies. Yeah. And it'll be a little note. Normally today we'd have done this at the office, but because we're not there, or sent this, or they send it all out to me. And it's just keeping that momentum of being in touch, and saying, look, we trust you, and we like the work that you're doing. And so I think companies,
you got to feel like you've got a chance of winning. I think that encourages the remote work. You got to, I was speaking to a chap that he's a head of software development. They made him on Friday work till 8 o'clock, and that's the other thing, right? Yeah. They get so many more hours from you when you are productive. They get so many more hours from you, right? And I think it all averages out eventually, productive and unproductive. They made this guy stay up till 8 o'clock on a Friday because there was a very, very, very important deployment. Yeah. And then the same people that asked him to do that work, they message him and goes, "Oh, sorry, we got stuck on stuff and we didn't do our side of the work." And it's just like that's what turns a productive member off. Yeah. And that's, I think, where the office really works out, because if there's one guy, you can kind of take the temperature of the room. That makes sense. And then if someone says to you, "Oh, this is super urgent, it has to be done," you can see everyone else moving around it. And pushing it. And I just think that's the type of stuff that kills remote workers, really good remote workers, right? It's this whole idea. It's so easy to just delegate work when it's remote and then not do your part, if that makes sense. I think there's loads of moving parts, but yeah, going back to this, right? So he's saying we ruined it. We ruined it. We had the best thing going, and we fudged it. By being so arrogant and going on. All we had to do was shut the hell up. All we had to do was shut the hell up, right, and enjoy a good thing. So let's watch the rest of this.
Shit was bad, but it was also very good for remote work because you couldn't go nowhere. We was stuck at the crib, but people still needed jobs and people still needed to make money. So they was like, "Oh, you know what? Work from home." And then we discovered we could have been working from home. We could have been doing that. There was really no need for the office. But then all you motherfuckers want to snitch on yourself. "Oh, I don't do nothing from home. I hardly work." Oh, why couldn't y'all be like, "Man, this is so difficult, but I really feel myself getting a lot of work done from home. I like the comfort of my home. I miss the office a little bit." Just act like you miss the office.
And you know what? Now that he said that, it looks like, well, that's what we're doing here by saying 1.5. But no. There is some truth. You do miss it. You do miss it. Like, if you're a productive member, you will eventually miss it. Yeah. But he's right. Like, that COVID forced it. But then he's going to go into this. Hold on.
Act like you was doing something. Because these businesses, they didn't want to pay for office space. But if you say you're not doing nothing, they're like, "All right, well, fuck it. Let's keep on paying for office space because that works on our taxes." When the going gets good, shut the fuck up. That's my recommendation. Because as soon as you let the world know about how great it is, it's not going to be great no more because everybody know now. No more remote work for us. Shitty. Go check in.
Anyway, yeah. So I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of value from remote working, but I wish I had some videos right now, but it's literally a day in the life. I had my latte, I had my massage, and now Google's been laying off tech employees like crazy. All like Tesla, they're cutting the chaff, and these are the people that are getting cut out, right? It's the non-productives, right? Because at first,
and boasting about it.
Yeah, at first they were hoarding talent. It was almost like, oh well, if we got them, at least the competition doesn't have them. And now
Yeah.
they're just like, nah, whatever, profitability. So all of the latte, the restaurants are starting to get shut down. The on-campus restaurants, all of that type of stuff, and we're seeing it now on our side. The benefits are just diminishing, and it's becoming a normal job. It's becoming a normal job working in tech. You know what I
Well,
mean?
well, just to sort of, I really like your little history on your sort of career and how you got into tech, and and it's quite interesting how, as I said, our roads met. With the fact that we didn't meet because, well, we met because we worked at the same company, but even though we weren't at the same company, we were two different spectrums of the country, different spectrums of work, etc. We still had this person in common, and again, it was down to tech.
Yeah.
I was selling typewriter ribbons and lift-off tapes, and people probably know what the fuck's a lift-off tape. Excuse my language. Basically, it's tippets on a ribbon, sort of thing.
Right.
And if you made a mistake, you hit the key, and it would lift off the mistake and duck sticking to it anyway. And I made a conscious decision that I should get into tech. After almost 16 years at this company.
Yeah.
Because in those days you didn't move around that much. I was at the company 16 years, and I made a conscious decision to get into tech. And again, like you, it was, all right, I'm going to have to start at the bottom rung of the ladder, and it's business development, and I was very old school, and where we worked was very old school, with the fact that there was no business development. You were a sales rep, you did everything, so when they said, business development, and I thought, what? So all I do is book a meeting, and then that's it, and then hand it over to someone. Yeah. Oh, right, okay. And before you know it, I was getting paid, I think in the first job, about 100 quid a meeting. And I was like, what?
Yep.
I'm loving this.
Yeah.
Loving this,
It was just brilliant. And you know what, Andrew? I have so much respect for business development. It is literally what greases the wheels. It's still underpaid.
It's still underpaid. It's still underpaid. It's undervalued. And one of the things that it used to really annoy me was we used to have these monthly not GTMs, but called QBRs, and it would be in the building and be a big room, and it'd be, Jeff's just closed this and Pete's closed that and blah blah blah. Not a mention of the business development manager. You're sharing the screen, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Continue. Yeah.
Not a mention about the poor little BDR who was doing all of the work and got you that meeting in the first place. But anyway, I digress.
No, you're right. They truly are the heroes, the unsung heroes. And we are going to go into that in today's episode.
And it was how you got into tech. It was how you got into these companies.
Yeah.
And I feel, from hearing things, from colleagues and my wife, and because that's what she does. She runs the business development team, manages them. They're so entitled, some of these people.
Yeah.
I've got out of university and I've got this, and what, you're going to only pay me 40 grand a year? My God, I would have bitten your arm off for 40 grand a year as a BDR.
Even with inflation in place, 40 grand a year is a good salary. Yeah. All you got to do, Andrew, maybe you should tell the audience a bit about, one of your recent experiences applying for just normal jobs, right? I think you should tell the audience a little bit about that, just to give them a reference of,
What, the one that I just had now?
No, so prior to working with me again, you thought you would take a break. So yeah, tell the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had, as Mencey said, had similar experiences, and I was lucky enough, and this is a lesson for everybody, and I'm not being big-headed. I was lucky enough to be referred to a number of jobs, from people that we'd met, and pretty much like you, somebody said, "Oh, you should be doing that," and I was lucky enough to be referred to my first, my second tech job, because the guy that I used to work with there, who was a sales rep, was now a manager at this other tech place, and he just reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, we need a team leader, blah, blah, blah. And that's where I met you. I think I joined about 6 or 7 months before you joined.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you look at sort of some of the jobs that I've tried to sort of go into, I think the ones that have been the most interesting have been the startup scale up type jobs. Yeah. One company who's got an amazing name in the sector, although I think it's a bit overinflated. I got referred there, and I was again very lucky. I had somebody that sort of said a lot of great things about me, and the job and the interview there was literally 2 cups of coffee with the sales director and a Zoom call with the CEO, and I got the job. And the idea was really they had no channel. Channel is a way of reselling your products for other people, like a wholesaler almost, and it was to literally build out the channel model from zero. Yeah, so I put a plan together, etc., shared it with my so-called counterpart, who I thought was my counterpart in the US, and the idea was that I was going to be VP of channel. Yeah, these are your targets, these are your goals, etc., and as I thought, it was given to an American because they just thought it was better there. So I decided to move on. But interviews have been really weird.
No, but what I want you to tell the audience is about your considered break from software sales when you went into real life.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna touch upon. So anyway, I did a couple of those, and then I just thought, what, I'm burned out. I'm burned out, and I'm gonna just get away from tech now, and I'm going to go into something else. Yeah, something where I do my 9 to 5, 9 to 6, whatever it may be, come home, switch off. Because as you know, in sales, you never really switch off. You have no holiday, you have no weekends. You're always thinking about the opportunity that's, either at risk or you're trying to move forward, whatever. And I went for a couple of jobs. So I went for a job as a post person. I won't say postman, post person. And I went for a job as a bus driver. Yeah. And I got both jobs.
Nice.
Both jobs were offered to me. And I sat there and I'm thinking, hang on a second. I do 8 till 6, let's say. And yes, there's a lot of stress, and there are some weekend work involved, and it's in the comfort of my own home.
Yeah.
And it's on my laptop. The post office, wanted me to work. I think it was 9 hours a day, right, or 8.5 because you got a half an hour break. And those 8.5 could be from 4 a.m. to midday, could be from midday till about 9, 10 o'clock, whatever it is. Or it could be from about 8 o'clock all the way through to 2 in the morning, right? And I'm thinking, you got the thing about the postman. He gets up, he does a delivery or two, finishes at midday, goes home. Tends to his. This was my idea of retirement. So this, if we touch on retirement, this was my idea. Not fully retire, but do this kind of job. And that is absolute bullshit.
What?
That is,
I've just googled. The average postman the average salary of it says 40 grand annual. So you're doing legwork. You're bloody having to figure out where the doors are. Fighting dogs. I don't know if that stereotype still exists.
Forget all of that. Forget all of that. Right. But now to cut costs, what they used to do was fly in parcels via plane. They're getting rid of that because it's too expensive. So now parcels are not being flown in to regional airports. They're being flown into very few select ones and then shipped via road. Okay, which then means parcels arrive at local depots and sorting offices later. Which then means that because of commitments for next day delivery and blah blah blah, you're going to have to do deliveries later in the day. Now the average postman's workload, you used to have your sack and your letters and your, parcels, little jiffy bag or whatever. No. is now becoming more and more parcel related. Yeah. And do you know what the salary was? Because that figure there includes postmen who are on the old contracts, right? If you went to join as a post person now, right, you are on minimum wage. Minimum
What's
wage.
that, Andrew?
Irrespective of the hours that you do. So there's no such thing as...
How much is that educating?
Minimum wage is £11.80 or £12.30, depending on your age. I think
how much a month?
Oh, I don't know. It was about 26 grand a year.
Wow.
Yeah, but that doesn't say. And I thought, oh well, if I do a Sunday, I'll get double time because that's how it used to be. Or if I do evenings, I'll get double time. But no. That is irrespective.
Flat rate, yeah. And
that's what you do.
And that's the thing, Andrew, right? So
before you move on, sorry. So this is a postman, right? And you've got to think, you've got weathers, and you've got the rose-tinted glasses, and you're going to knock on the door, and Doreen's going to be there. Hi, Doreen, your local post. Mate, you've got 20-story blocks, no lifts, etc. So this is the one I really want to touch on. Right? I got this job. I am responsible for, I think it was 38 people on my vehicle. Right? I'm responsible for their lives. I'm responsible for them getting to A to B safely, on time, etc.
Not to mention all the abuse of all the people that don't want to pay their
fares.
Verbal
abuse, the non-payments, because you're responsible. If you carry the till, but the thing for me was when I started going through the training, because I actually was, I'm going to do this, right? Because I'm going to get a license and I can go into other types of thingy. And my ultimate idea was a little transport company, right? But the training about, what you do when there's a
terrorist attacks, all that type of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, a crash, icy roads, non-payment, somebody slips as they're getting on your bus, all sorts, the health and safety implications and the responsibility for a bus driver. You know what? I've got huge respect, right? And you're getting 25k a year. Yeah, makes me feel so humble and so stupid for complaining about some of the things that I've had to do in my sales career in tech.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like there does come a point when you're in tech. Look, I'm not going to say this is free money. It's not. There comes a point in tech, and we are going to dive into this, where business development, you're in the face of rejection all the time, right?
Yeah.
You need to become skilled, learn products. You need to as I now reach my 8th or 9th year in sales, I've got big respect, right, for the craft. Because you start noticing the difference between yourself, your skills, your social skills, and your ability to analyze things and know how to get a project done. You benchmark that against someone who's never done sales, and you realize, whoa, I've actually got a skill here, right? And that skill seems to translate into money, big amounts of money for organizations, and that's why they're paid. So I'm not here to poo-poo people. But going back to your point of entitlement, you're a fresh university grad. You're making 40 grand a year. So you're already eclipsing some of these key infrastructure jobs. When we think about COVID, when COVID was shut down, the bus drivers needed to drive, right? The postmen needed to deliver stuff, right? And you think that you can just waltz in just because you've got a degree, right? And start demanding 40K and complaining about it, 50K, 60K, 70K. There is a massive discrepancy there in expectations. And while we're talking about this again, so it's just like it's just to reaffirm that the tech sector is still a very lucrative sector, but
also let's add on to that 40k or 50k or whatever it is let's add on to it. You do get the chance to travel if you work with certain companies. You do the GTMs, the kickoffs, etc. You may get the chance to travel, and yes, you do get drinks and coffee, and you get gym memberships, and you get additional pension contributions. You get things like health cover, etc. Yeah. with the bus driver job particularly, it was free parking. That was
Mad.
that was the
And that's the
benefit.
incentive.
Free
yeah.
parking.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, no, not free parking anywhere. Free parking at the work depot.
Oh well, thank you thank you very much. Like, do you know what I mean?
Thanks.
It's just madness. But you know, that just goes to it really helps drive that perspective of just how much of a blessing it is to be in tech sector, let alone do remote work. You know, and that expectation is just crazy. So Andrew, coming back to what you were saying about the bus driver and the postman job, I think there is that, in summary, that there is that the tech sector is still very lucrative, right? And there's so many benefits. I mean, another benefit that I really want to explore in this conversation is the share benefit as well, right? You get allocated shares, and the idea is, you and I have worked in startups before, and one of the other incentives that we get is sometimes when there isn't money for high salaries, what they do is they compensate you with shares, equity, right? And traditionally, I've mentioned this now in the last 2 podcasts because it's taken me ages to read this book. It's called Bull, right? So the book is called A History of the Boom and the Bust from 1982 to 2004, right? And the tech sector gets mentioned a lot in this. And one of the things that they talk about is this idea that if you join a company that's a startup, a big way of retaining that talent is through the equity that they give you, right? So you get loyalty, it stops talent from seeping into different areas, right? And this idea is that you've got these incumbents, or the big ones, the FANG, Facebook, Apple, Google, Netflix, etc. But if you can create a new innovative technology that can disrupt some of that market share, you could be looking at billions, if not trillions, in the evaluation of an organization. So if you're an employee like us and you're like, say, employee number 201, you compare that to the employees that a Facebook may have. So for example, let's go to this for 1 minute. How many employees does Google have? Right? So Google is at 182,000 employees. Imagine if you're in a disruptive startup that takes market share away from Google or complements the Google technology, and you're employee number 2, you're the first 100 employees and you've got good equity. We're talking there could be another 250k to £500,000 worth of money that you get at the end of that rainbow, right? But that's if the organization makes it. And I wanted to this video by Mark Zuckerberg kind of explains exactly where the thinking is behind how startups can beat big companies. So I kind of wanted to share that with you, Andrew, because it might kind of shed some light into this idea of, right, what are the benefits of working for a tech startup, and kind of what's also the dark side of tech, right?
Why was it the case that we were able to build Facebook and that some other company didn't? Right? It wasn't like it was a super novel idea, right? There was Friendster before, there was MySpace, there was all this stuff. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, they all had versions of it. Why didn't they do it? And we kind of watched them, right? In the early days, it's like fumbling around, and it's not that they had a lack of talent, right? We were like.
So Andrew, what Mark Zuckerberg is explaining here, is that it's not a talent problem, right? So if you look at the statistic we just looked at, where we're saying 180,000 employees in Google, right? You'd think with so much talent, they'll be able to do everything perfect. And what he's explaining here is that it's not an issue of just having talent. There's blind spots that happen, right? So he's going to go into explain, the irony of what he achieved with Facebook, yeah? So let's go on to this.
Apple, Microsoft, Yahoo, they all like had versions of it. Why didn't they do it? I think it's like, I mean, we kind of watched them, right? In the early days, it's like fumbling around, and it's not that they had a lack of talent, right? I mean, we were like a ragtag group of children, right? And they had like all these like serious, engineers.
So again, explaining what I was saying before, right? You had all these companies that grew so much that they just hoarding engineers, like loads and loads and loads and loads of let's expand. Because you got to see it this way, Andrew. Yeah, when we think about the FANG era, which I would say is somewhere between 2015 and let's just call it 2020, right? Where like COVID really fudged things up, right? It was all about Goldman Sachs would be looking at like software companies and being like, what's the employee growth like? Yeah. And if you could have different engineers in different regions and show that you're a proper global organization that's growing was also the headcount of employees, right? But did that necessarily translate into productivity? And that's kind of what I'm trying to lay up with this video, yeah? But what Mark is saying here is these big giants, they missed opportunities because it's not just a talent problem. So let's carry on with this, yeah?
And like serious infrastructure, and so I kind of think the reason is because people doubt new ideas before they come to fruition, right? So the narrative with social networking is like, it's just like this college kid thing. It's like, okay, fine, maybe not college kids, but it's probably a fad. Oh, okay, maybe it seems like it's going to be around for a while, but it's probably not going to make money. Oh, it's making money, but the switch to mobile is going to be pretty hard. And then it's like, okay, by the time we figured that out, it was too late for anyone to go. The companies had lost their advantage. I do think that, like, even for the things that look like they belong to large companies as opportunities because they have a big distribution advantage, I would guess that big companies are going to fumble 2/3 of those.
Right. So imagine it's like a 30% hit rate on what they actually embark on. And everything else is a failure, right? But it's those failed opportunities that kind of allow new organizations to start up and to take market share, and that's or to complement what they do. And that's kind of where we've got into, Andrew. Do you know what I'm trying to say when we do startups? Because we always ask ourselves, like, we were in application security, and we just thought, why doesn't Microsoft just do this? Yeah, our evaluation, for some of these companies that we work for has been like, what, 1 billion, 2 billion? Right, Andrew? Sometimes 3 billion. We work for some of these startups, and you'd think that Microsoft will just do it, or the big tech companies will just do it because that would be like a pet project to them. Yep. But especially when it comes to doing it in-house, but they're just doing other stuff, or there's wastage when it comes to engineering resource. Because he's just said there's a psychology around starting up new projects and getting it done well and whatnot. Right, that's just the name of the game. But what I find quite interesting from this is that he's saying, you could have all the talent in the world, all the infrastructure in the world, but you can be disrupted by a few great minds. Do you know what I mean, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But just sort of going a little bit back on what we were saying earlier about attracting talent and also trying to attract loyalty. With share options and bits and pieces like that. I think we've both worked in several companies where we've been given the options of shares, whether you get given them or you have to buy them or whatever it may be. And I'll be honest with you, I've seen no financial benefit.
No.
On yes, there's been a Vericode, there was a little one because we were bought out and bits and pieces. But I think, it's certainly a long-term, if that's the way you're going to, if that's one of the things that you're going to decide or is a deciding factor of joining an organization, then it's a long-term plan. And it's like investing money in the S&P 500 or the FTSE 100 or whatever. It's literally the same as that. You've got to be prepared to put in the long-term effort into it. And also, at the end of it, nothing may happen.
Well, this is it. He's just said it himself. 2/3 of projects, he said, 2 out of 3 things won't be done very well.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 out of 3 things that our companies, the startups, are trying to fill in. But again, the failure rate on that could be high. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's why they're called unicorns. Yeah. And I just find it interesting, right? Again, this, because what I hope we're doing with this episode is we're kind of ripping off. We're ripping off this facade, this veil of the glory of tech, right? And it is coming to its day, a bit like banking has, right, as that prestigious job, because there was a time where you used to get shares at a discounted price because you were one of the first 200 members. But the truth is, I'm really throwing this number out of the sky, right? But I think only 5% of those share options ever end up being a winner for any of us throughout our careers, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it seems like a benefit that just doesn't really end up being a benefit. If that makes sense.
I think you know, a lot of the time it's not a benefit. I think, you know, a lot of the time, unless you've timed it just right,
you would have to have some edge and some crystal ball or some form of internal knowledge to know. And that's why I wanted to shine the light on this here, because it also relates, Andrew, to something that's happening right now, right? Yeah. Look at this. The large scale layoffs are happening, right? So when we think about 2020, all these tech companies started hiring lots of remote workers to grow and to serve, you know, the time where everyone was pivoting to just online platforms because we were stuck at home. But they grew too big. They over leveraged themselves on employees. And look at these stats. So far, so in 2023, there were 2,012 tech layoffs at companies. So just, you know, 2,000 plus headlines of mass tech layoffs, which affected 429,608 people across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think that there are. I don't think things have changed much at all from what you were mentioning before about, you know, the hiring and things like that. I think you know, whether it's an established tech company or a startup tech company, they're either looking for additional funding or they're trying to present themselves as a viable acquisition target. Yeah. They think that by putting bums on seats is going to make them more attractive, and I don't understand that. I'm no finance guru, but I equate bums on seats to cost.
See, we're back to bullshit and mirrors, Andrew. So to interrupt you. We're back to bullshit and mirrors. It's like, oh, if we made X amount, because look at what Mark said. Mark said a couple of like sweaty teenagers or whatever, you know, created Facebook. And then you think, well, if five people created Facebook with another 10 engineers and got it running, well, if we 100x that, then let's just 100x the number that it poos out at the end. Do you know, it's like more, like you said, more bums and seats means growth.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I'm not going to mention the company, but there's one particular company that we've had experience of, and the hiring over the last, you know, well, not over the last, but over a short period of time has been ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous to the fact that finding a territory or finding a role for a salesperson or a business development person, it's become nigh on impossible. You've now got somebody responsible for one tiny little country in EMEA, whereas only 5 months ago you had one person responsible for EMEA. Exactly. Yeah. So just because you've put one person on each country, it doesn't mean that it's going to relate to more sales. It's just going to relate to fewer opportunities amongst more people.
Andrew, there was a time, right, and I remember this from 8 years ago, where there were some companies that had a postcode system in the UK. Absolutely. So you would manage London, and it would be East London, West London, and the market wasn't that big. No. It was crazy. The numbers, you know.
Let me tell you a story. A very big identity access management company that I had the pleasure of working for, and we were at the sales kickoff in Las Vegas. You know, all of the big fancy, you know, blah blah. Look at us, you know. And I'm sitting there with this young lady, just having a chit chat. You know, she was one of the few Brits or from the UK. and just having a chit chat. And she was like, you've done really well. And I'd done really well that year. And I said, yeah, a bit of luck, bit of this, bit of that. And I said, how are you doing? She goes, oh, I'm struggling, to be honest. What's your territory? It's UK. Oh, okay. Well, it's a nice big market. No. I've got SW18 and Croydon, or blah blah blah, something stupid like that. And I'm thinking, this girl had a target of $1.3 million revenue on a postcode and a town just outside of London.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I know. And that's the level of stupid money that we got to in terms of hypergrowth, right?
Yeah.
And it was all just for bullshit and mirrors. Like I said, it was all just to make the facade. Oh my God, this is so hot that we can now afford to employ a full-time salesperson for Brixton. Right, for the patty shop in Brixton, right? It's mad, and that's the thing. So this book that I highlighted earlier on, it delves into like the 1999 crisis and 2003. So that the reason why I mention this, but let me just in fact finish this. In 2024 now, there's been 151 layoffs.
800.
So 851 layoffs affecting 212,000, right? That's 838 per day. So imagine we had 429,000 last year. Now we've supplemented that with another 212, right? Layoffs again. So there's some people that probably been laid off twice back to back, and I've met a couple myself, right? But this is just a whole new wave of people, and look at the companies, right? So this has now been done, a little chart been done on a monthly basis, right? So we've got Nokia that did 14 foul in October. Neo, I think Neo, that's the car company, the EV maker. They did 10%. Broadcom, I mean, bloody hell, how they could have streamlined even more. It's crazy, that because they acquire and fire. That's literally their but they've now got another 2,000 that has gone, TikTok, I mean, who would think TikTok, right? Okay, 1,000. Fair enough, right? Delivery Hero. SAP, do you remember that headline back in January? 8,000 people gone. Tesla, I mean, they were at it last year as well, but they've done another 14,000 in April. Intel, 15,000. Dell, 12,000, right? So if you think about it, Andrew, right? They overhired around the year 2000, 2020, when the stocks were going up really high, right? And now they're now laying off people because they've realized that they've got a load of talent that isn't really being deployed in an effective way, right?
Well, also I know we go on about COVID, but there's the COVID factor involved. If you look at Delivery Hero and the one with the yellow G, that's a company called Getir, which is a Turkish company. They exploded. They exploded. They were buying out delivery companies in Spain, in France, in the Netherlands, in the UK, in Spain, the US, Germany. They were even sponsoring Tottenham Hotspur. This is how big they were growing. Massive. Yeah. Did nobody think that COVID's now finished and we don't need deliveries of nappies and stuff like that. And now literally every office outside of Turkey has closed down. Everyone's been fired, and in fact they've shrunk their whole thing in Turkey as well.
Yeah. And you know what, the reason why I reference this book here is because, right, so this is what the book is teaching me, because it's talking about the 99 to 2002 kind of tech bubble, right? So what I learned from this book is companies like Dell. Okay, so if you think about why you issue shares to your employees, right? You issue shares to employees to incentivize them, to keep them. But apparently, Andrew, there's a third element.
Oh, yeah.
It lowers your operating costs. So if I'm paying you in shares, it's a one-time expense. But what happens is a lot of these tech companies have overissued a lot of shares.
Right.
And they've hidden the cost of that. So now they're having to grow their share price so that the shares that are left over are actually providing investor growth for their, for their investors, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is you overemploy so that it looks like your organization's growing, and then all the analysts in Goldman Sachs and whatnot go, oh my God, they're growing even more, so there's going to be even more profit in new territories, all that type. It's basically what was happening around 2000. And then they realized, oh crap, the market's not really there. It's all BS in merit. So they went for a big spike, right? And now they're not able to hold that spike up. So what do, Andrew? You streamline your costs. You fire a load of people, and then people go, oh, the actual salaries, the operating costs, it's gone down exponentially, and the profits are going to carry on going up. So there was a strategic drive in a strategy drive in terms of getting the share price going up by making the employee headcount go up. But now that the sentiment is that actually the market's not really growing as fast as possible, now let's keep the share price up by streamlining costs, and that makes the Wall Street people happy, right?
Yeah,
but there's another thing, Andrew, right, that this book has taught me. So listen to this, yeah. In 1998, this is Dell. Michael Dell took home 12,800,000 options, which and an additional salary of 3.5 million in salary and bonuses. Now, it goes on to say, right, usually founders such as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they didn't take option, because why would you have to give options to a CEO or a founder? Sorry, should I say? A CEO is fine, but why would you have to give options to a founder for them to stay committed to the company? They're the bloody founder.
Yeah.
Right? So, what did Mr. Dell do? He issued all these shares. He obviously had shares for a lot of shares for his employees. So his shares amounted to 21% of the whole company. And then you have the shares for the other people. So what happens is, what he did was he kept the price of the shares going up by buying his own shares. Right? So if you keep on buying the shares, it keeps the price going up. Right? So he used the company money to buy the shares. And then guess what he did to his own shares? Guess.
Sold them.
He sold them.
Yeah.
So he artificially kept...
Well, basically, he artificially increased the value of the shares and then profited even more by selling his own ones.
Yeah, and then it tanks, but he's still rich.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this to vilify. Something else that they also did, they've got a chapter here on financial innovations. Yeah. What they started doing as well is, because their stock kept rising, but the profits weren't there, what they were doing is they started off funds, innovation funds. So you give innovation grants to startups. And then guess what you do? Well, if I'm Dell, or if I'm Oracle, or I'm Microsoft, and I start off an innovation fund, well, what's the condition? The condition is you do it all on Microsoft's infrastructure. You do it all on Oracle infrastructure. So you've got these incubation funds, and now you've added an extra 100 or 200 customers into your reports to show growth, when really you've kind of paid them to buy your software. Does that make sense? So all of these financial instruments have been put in the background. Other things as well is they do futures or puts. They'll say, oh, let's become profitable by using economic instruments to say that, oh, when our share's going to hit 60, and if it hits 60, we make profit as well. So now they're not making profits off their customers. They're making profits by almost acting like a hedge fund.
So, yeah. It's, I mean, as I say, I don't know too much about these, but I know working at, there was one company I worked at, and they did that. They literally had an innovation fund. I know IBM has one, and
it's fine to have an innovation fund, right? And you do want to support different technologies that complement yours, a bit like what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about. But there's a dark side to this as well. And what I'm trying to show here is that in some cases the collateral damage has been the employees.
Well, yeah, I think in all cases, I think employees are just a vessel to show the growth or the value of a company, and they're a commodity that can be hired and fired, added and removed according to markets. We're no longer in an industry, well, in a world where you took on an employee because you had to increase manufacturing of a product. Yeah, it's no
You're
longer
not
that.
always exactly, Andrew. Thank you. You're not always employed to make the company great through your
No,
work.
no,
Sometimes you're there as a number
yeah.
to make and
And,
these are
and
all sorry.
no, and just sort of going back to what we were saying earlier about, when you go out onto the job market, whether you're experienced or whether you're starting off, there's a lot of things to consider. There's, don't be over, don't be flattered by, you're going to get 100,000 shares, and you think, oh wow, amazing, it's nothing. It's nothing. And are you in a position where you can sit on that company, and are you confident you can ride out, and do you think you're confident in the company's technology, or are you in a position where, I need the money now, I don't want shares, I
Yeah.
want a job that pays slightly higher salary, or
Yeah.
whatever. And you put it really well with regards to smoke and mirrors. There's a hell of a lot of smoke and mirrors out there.
And this is it. You're right, Andrew. And what I'm really trying to show here is that this stuff wasn't as prominent when technology was basic. You know what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say? There used to
yeah,
be a time when you used to join a company and it was all about the value you could give to a company, and you
yeah,
used to go out there and sell or create or whatever. Now there's just so much turning around it that you need to really kind of understand these things as you join an organization
yeah,
to really know whether like your value is truly your work or whether it's other things in the background, and that's something to consider. And I think I also wanted to go into who's been fired, right? So we've got all these tech layoffs. Look at this, Andrew, just to add extra basis to this, right? The top 5 affected roles were HR talent sourcing. 27.8%
yeah,
of these layoffs. Software engineers, 22.1%. 7.1% of customer service. So I'm guessing that's sales and stuff like that, which is good news for us, right? And communications at 4.4%, right? So, when you think about it, it goes to show that the fact that HR and talent sourcing has gone down 27.8%, right? They say AI is replacing software engineers. That's not enough of a steep downturn to prove that software engineers are redundant now. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's just they obviously overhired, right? I don't think AI is really affecting the workplace yet. Now let's look at who was least expected. Project managers. Sorry. So it's safe to say that executive level, who generally make hiring and firing decisions, were safe from the layoffs. Managers were not. Sorry. So project managers, product managers, and middle managers took the hit, right? Individual contributors working on essential projects and the business were also considered safe. Oh, so no shit, Sherlock, right? We kept the people we needed, the people that were actually making. And I think these are all like really, really important considerations when you join a company, right? So going back to like sales, Andrew, we were giving BDRs, a little bit of glory, saying that look, they've really changed they really changed the mood of a company. They changed the direction of a company. If you think about that, right? Yes, there's all these artificial mechanisms where they're getting companies to buy their software and they're doing partnerships and whatnot, right? But really and truly, salespeople that can open up new doors and get new contracts, right? Usually they give you a target of like you said, 1.1 million, 800,000, whatever it may be a year, right? But What do you think is the true value of one customer that pays 100,000 a year in contract value? What do you think
Yes,
that, what do you think the real value behind that is?
that's a great question, and I suppose there's a lot of factors involved in it. But who the customer is there any value in success stories, branding, that putting their brand all over the place? That adds value to a customer. Is the customer pretty self-reliant? You've sold them a whole heap of services, but they're pretty self-reliant and they just get on with it. So it takes up less resources. But ultimately, I think it's about putting not the because 100,000 isn't really affecting the company, because I don't think, as again saying again, I don't think they're looking at that. They're looking at how many people, how many customers.
Well,
that's what I think they're looking at.
Well, okay, so let's pivot into, because this is all about education, right? So I've been doing a little bit of research in the background, and there's a company called GitLab. So GitLab, for those of you who don't know what GitLab is, they are a software company, and they provide a lot of tools for the software development lifecycle. So when we think about creating an application, they have one platform that allows teams to put together applications, and they just have so many different functionalities. It can almost be a one-stop shop for the way you develop your software. But what particularly makes this company very special is that it IPO'd. So when did it IPO? Let's have a look. When did GitLab IPO? So it IPO'd in 2021, right? And since then, they have open source, so they made very open everything they do, right? So they, their business meetings can be found in YouTube, their go-to-markets. Like literally, if you want to learn about sales and you want to delve into the story of a successful company, you can really, really feel like you're part of the company by just going on YouTube, because they publish everything, in the open. And I was looking at their financial statements for 2022, and look at the way they communicate about their logos, right? So remember, this is going to all their investors, Andrew, right, after they've IPO'd. So they're saying, right, our total revenue was for that quarter was 77.8 billion. So this is one of the, I'll call it one of the most successful unicorns, because they continue growing. Anyway, they tell us all the high level information. But what I really like about this is they go fourth quarter fiscal year 22 business highlights. They state they have customers with more than 5,000 revenue, annual recurring revenue. It's increased, so basically 4,593 was the amount of customers that they had with more than 5,000. And then they go customers with more than 100,000 ARR. At that date, they had 492.
Mm-hmm.
Customers with more than 1 million, 39 customers. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so why am I highlighting this? Because we get tasked, you come into an organization, they might give you an annual salary, right? They will give you an annual salary, and they're going to give you bonuses based on what you land. And let's just say your base salary is 100K, and you're tasked with 800K, or let's call it £1 million target. If you land 10, let's just say you land 8 customers. Let's just say you land, it's £1 million target. So yeah, you land 8 customers, and each customer has spent 100K. Sorry, you land 10 customers, each customer at 100K. So you've met your £1 million target. Well, you usually make double your salary. So you've made 200K, right? You've brought £1 million worth of revenue to that organization. But you've made this ticker go from 492 to 502.
Mm-hmm.
That's your personal. What's the value of that? If it's good enough to be in a financial statement like this, and that would end up being what's 10 out of let's just say 10 out of 500. What percentage is that, Andrew? What, 1%?
5.
10 out of 500?
Yeah.
Is that
5%.
5%? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, my maths is really bad right now. Right.
Thank you.
You've just made that go up 5%,
Yeah.
and that's annual recurring revenue. There is a lot of value behind a 100K deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally use this to get more investment. It makes their stock value go up, Andrew. And look, let's have a look. Let's have a look at it, right?
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Before you do that, let's go back to that other slide, okay? Right. So, that's been presented in a way which is highly positive, right? Yeah. We've got 100. Our customer spending 100 ARR has gone up 74%. Blah blah blah, etc. etc. Right. And it's been presented in a really good way, but it can be seen quite negatively as well. It can be saying that you've got a lot of exposure, as in, most of your revenue is coming from a smaller market, etc.
But that's why they have this distributed amongst the three bullet points. But this is my point. Your contribution, we were talking earlier on about being a bum on a seat, and then what I'm trying to decipher now is what is a good contribution. Does that make sense? Like, what is a valuable? What makes you part of that percentage of people that aren't laid off? Do you know what I'm trying? That's what I'm trying to decipher. Like, what makes you a valuable employee nowadays? And I'm under the understanding that if you're consistently moving the marker on the main bullet points of revenue, you are a valuable employee.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to measure directly many roles, right? Going back to what we said earlier about the BDR, the BDR that's opened that door. However, it's the salesperson that closed it, and they get all the glory and a huge percentage of the salary and bits and pieces. So it's easy to measure a salesperson, but we both have an experience where sales is I think you mentioned it actually, is project management.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're a conductor and you're getting help from this person and help from there. Sales engineers, business development, the people that are going to look after that customer afterwards, and customer success, etc. And so it becomes more difficult. It becomes more difficult as you look at different roles within sales. It's also the retention of that customer. We talk about ARR. ARR is really important, as long as it is repetitive revenue.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're touching on a great point. You can't decipher. Yeah, and thank you. And I do apologize to the audience if I was alluding to the fact that a salesperson is the only person. There are many. We solve the world's problems. We do, yeah. But there are many factors in what makes a successful company. Yeah. And really what I was trying to shine a light on is, it's, the acquisition of a customer as a team effort is what really drives the success of a company. And, I think it's interesting that these massive tech layoffs have happened. And I wonder if it's short-sighted, because everyone's now cutting down. Oh, Google have done it, so let's do it because we're Tesla. Oh, now let's do it. Tesla's done it. Microsoft, let's do it too. Do you know what I'm trying? And it starts spreading like a wildfire. But then the smaller organizations start thinking that they can do the same too. Yeah. And I just want and I wonder, it's like middle management getting cut.
Yeah.
Project managers getting cut. Executives aren't getting cut.
And salespeople aren't getting cut.
Well, I don't know if that's exactly what it said, but the point I'm trying to make is this: I wonder if we're going to go full cycle into the wrong people getting laid off, and that the winners are going to be those that do retain, that they don't go with the fad, and they look at their business and they go, I don't give a damn if Microsoft, Tesla, and all are slashing their people. Let's look at what we need. Let's look at our fundamental people. Right, and let's block out the noise. And maybe we don't make the profits from looking leaner, and maybe our investors do frown a little bit and go, oh, why aren't you leaner, right? But let's just weather this storm, and let everyone fire their great talent, and let's be in the market whilst it's quiet, developing that equity and that mind share in the market. I just find it very interesting. It's something that
Well, you know what? Even as a salesperson who maybe has a history of success. They've been to club and they've done this and they've done that, and they're consistently hitting targets or overhitting their targets, etc. I still hear stories of people like that being laid off because it doesn't fit with the future plan. Yeah. This is the way that we're going, and we don't think that you're going to fit in there. This person has proven that he is bringing in revenue to your organization year after year, and then all of a sudden you think, maybe we're focusing on a different territory, or we're focusing on. I don't get it. I don't get it, and I'd love to be a fly on the wall sometimes.
Andrew, there is a bigger plan, and that's the thing. It's like, for example, in one of the jobs that I left, I hit 104% of my target. All of my peers in that company, there were a lot that didn't hit target, and other than myself, the ones that did hit target were on renewals and expansions. So for people that don't know, renewal expansion, when you've got an existing customer and you convince them to buy new products, right? So you grow by selling them new stuff. My target was new business only. So my logos would be on those top 3 bullet points. And whilst my colleagues were getting all the glory, so for example, if you're talking about a customer that has already been with you for 5 years, they're already spending $1 million. They might spend another 200,000, right? Because they already have that trust with you. So with me as a new logo acquisition person, I may have a very similar target to that peer that's doing renewals and expansions, but I have to achieve it with new customers that don't trust me, right? So I bought in an extra, I think it was 11 logos, right? That amounted to about 800,000, something like that, maybe 750. I can't remember too well, yeah. But the point is this: I was being compared to the people that were doing renewals and expansions, and I was almost treated like a loser, right? I got no recognition, nothing. Why didn't you get more? That was kind of the attitude, even though I was doing it on raw new business, and I decided to leave because I just thought, whilst I was making money, I needed to be in an environment that was also going to nurture my talent, right, and recognize me, because it's a long-term play, right? So, I'm saying all this to say that I truly believe that the reason why companies make these mistakes is because there are investment pressures that are way above our pay grade, and they've got to look a certain way. Like you said, so what if Mencey did that in the UK? You're showing no growth in India. You're showing no growth in China. Our CEO said that there was going to be growth in Portugal. What's happened to that? And they just go, look, I'm so sorry. I know your money's green, but it's not green enough. Goodbye. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Or maybe they don't lay you off, but they just don't support you because your work isn't seen as key. So it's not always about money. And that's what I'm learning the hard way in this. And I think these are all just consideration points that there's a lot of people being laid off right now that are good workers, and they're blaming themselves. And I guess I'm saying all this to say that it's not as clear cut as that right now, specifically in the tech sector.
No, absolutely, and it doesn't matter if you're in AppSec, cybersecurity, other forms of tech or whatever. I think it's a very volatile sector. Technology sector is a very volatile sector. I think there's a huge shift in culture and the way things are done. And I'm showing my age before, but as a salesperson, I was responsible for bringing in sales. That meant picking up the phone, speaking to people, generating opportunities, generating leads, etc., etc. All of a sudden, we've now been told that no, the salesperson has to focus on the sale element, and a BDR should do the actual opportunity hunting and knocking on the door, and then the renewals and expansions manager should look after the existing customer, etc. Well, hang on a second, we've gone full circle again. Now people are going, every AE has got to generate their own opportunities. Every AE, well, what was wrong with it in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact,
was it a fact that, one person or one company was successful in doing it that way? Or is it, again, how can we expand our sales team? How can we make ourselves look bigger? Well, we've got a team of business development. We've got a team of salespeople, and not only salespeople, commercial, enterprise, mid-enterprise, strategic, global, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, is it a reason to look bigger? Or does it actually work? I don't know.
Well, exactly. I mean, just for the audience, I want to share a bit of information. We are delving deep into our own careers in sales and tech, so apologies for those. But sometimes we do need to go into the weeds a little bit, right? So if we think about, let's share this. Right. So when we think about demand generation, this is how organizations gain new customers, right? So the green represents the partners. So again, Andrew was alluding to that earlier on. There, usually businesses will partner with other businesses that can expose that business to new customers. So the general consensus is about a third of your potential new customers will come from partners, right? And then you have the communications. So earlier on, as you saw in the article, about 5% of communications people were laid off, like marketeers. They're in the background constantly, and I know they get a lot of flack from salespeople, and a lot of it's like, all you do is advertisement, but it's important. When we think about the online content, it's slow, but people familiarize themselves with the company. The events that happen, the right advertisement. Sometimes they use agencies as well to do telemarketing. A third of your new potential customers are meant to come from the marketing engine. And then the other third comes from cold calling, so direct approaches from salespeople, right? And customer referrals as well. So you may have existing relationships with X companies that you sold, and you bring them on. And the idea is, there should be a 6-month period to get to the opportunities you need. In this case, examples 37, for you to hit target, right? And these are all the clogs in that wheel. Now, if you come in and you just kill marketing because it's the fashionable thing to do, streamline your salespeople because, again, you want to get that going. And then you say, partner referrals. Well, they need to lean on all of this stuff for their stuff to work as well. So you're paralyzing your growth. And I think that a lot of this in terms of sales is completely overlooked. Right? You spoke about other elements, customer success. Sometimes you've got people that are generally just supporting their existing customers and teaching them how to use the product. The end user might leave that company, goes into a new company, and they go, I love the customer service that happened in that previous company that I was collaborating with, and they bring in on your product. I think to summarize this, right, I think there's a lot of organizations that are just shooting themselves in the foot. And right now, the trend is let's hire a one-man band that can do everything.
Absolutely.
There isn't enough jobs in the market. They're desperate. They're just going to accept it how it is. Right?
And I've experienced it. I've literally experienced it. You've got UK and Ireland, go and do your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They, some people, and a lot of the time it is people, smaller organizations that are looking to penetrate markets. For me, again, I'm no CEO, I'm no boss. I just rely on years of experience. You want to penetrate a market, right? You shouldn't be going for the one-man band. You should be looking at the blue section and the green section. Where is there a partner or a reseller in that region that I can partner with and get them to really be that element. But yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we're lowly salespeople.
Yeah, but I think it's important for the crowd or whoever is watching this to understand, right, that there's different phases. Go into that interview, right, and understand what the philosophy is. If they're asking,
ask these questions. You're going to give me, your expectations from me as a salesperson potentially joining your organization is X, right? What does this slide look like in your organization? What does your channel model look like? How do you get businesses to engage with you, whether it's online or whatever? What are your existing customers saying about you? Where have you been successful that we can emulate and copy and go on other pieces? Don't be afraid to ask these questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, because what do you get, Andrew? What do you get? Oh, yeah. Oh, your salary's a bit high. I mean, this is going back to, your salary's a bit high, higher than we expect. Oh, okay, cool. So what team am I collaborating with? I mean, our marketing team's just getting started. Oh, okay. So do you have a business development team? We are building that, but we are expecting our salespeople to bring their own people. Oh, okay, cool. So there isn't much marketing. There isn't anyone else supporting me on new customer generation. How's your, how many customers do you already have right now? We don't really have that many in that region. All right. Okay, cool. So basically I'm running your business. Yeah. I mean, which is why we're giving you shares. Okay, cool. But I might never see the money off that ever, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So how much is my target? Yeah, it's about 1 million this year. So how much did you sell last year? Nothing in that region. Okay, cool. So when am I expecting to close my first deal? Our sales cycles are really like 3 or 4 months. 3 or 4 months. Yeah, you look underneath the hood. It's someone on their board. Back to that whole bullshit and mirrors. It's someone on their board that has closed the deal already because they're part of the bloody venture capitalist,
they're a friend, or they're part of the investment portfolio.
And they're pegging you in the state. You start off 3 months down the line, where's my deal?
Yeah.
You said you were a good closer. You said you were this. You said you were that. And now you're just the, you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy, and then it kills your confidence, all that type of stuff. So you need to really understand. Yeah, and thank you. You've helped me actually get to the point. You need to really understand the mechanics behind what an organization is doing. If they're streamlining, understand what they've streamlined and what's left over. Make your decision on, how long you're going to last based on that. Of course, we all like to think that we're heroes and we could do everything, but it takes a village to really, get things going. If that infrastructure is not there, I think we said this before in another podcast, but we'll carry on saying it, right? If that infrastructure is not there, then try to size up whether they will have the patience to help you see it through. And then if they do have a lot of people, and you are working in a territory like that's small and all that type of stuff, and they are over leveraged, well, then you have a different problem, right? Because you might be the next company to have this amount of layoffs.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I just think it's important to keep all those things in mind. And I think right now with the tech sector, Andrew, which is the point I really wanted to drill down home, there is a lot of, there's that fine line between, are we just a technology company that's selling product? Are we a finance organization that's trying to look sexy and get our share value up using different methodologies? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's out there, right? Or are you joining a sinking ship? But one thing is for sure, definitely take responsibility for your own results. I'm not saying to diverge that offload that elsewhere, because there are some people that are getting laid off because they're not valuable. But, like I said to a friend recently, he was laid off. Like, he had done four good years in a company, and he wasn't the only one laid off. It was obviously a decision from the top. He got stuck into a mentality where he was, taking personal responsibility for it. And it definitely wasn't that, and it's just like, don't let these things knock your confidence, because there's a lot of things that are happening in the background, and there's a lot of companies that are looking successful that aren't necessarily that successful due to their great sales team or even their great product. It's politics that's driving it, through. And I'll end it on this one, Andrew. A senior security architect reached out to me. He sent me this article about this mogul. His name is Jili Ranan, and he's basically set up a load of companies, one of which is one of the biggest unicorns in the cybersecurity space. And what the article is really shining a light on is that some of these startups that he's managed, he's basically got CISOs, which are chief information security architects, on the investment board of the organizations he works for. So they participate as consultants, and then guess what? The first sales come from the loyal CISOs who work for the fund. So he invites the CISOs to the fund, right? That's funding the particular startup. And then lo and behold, although it may be considered small money, the jumps between the first stages of fundraising are the most difficult. Until a regular startup company reaches sales of 2 to 10 million, it grinds itself up to a pulp. But with Jil Ranan, this happens in the first year of sales. So basically, he's created a network, gets the CISOs onto the board. They buy the tech. They quickly get to 2 to 10 million worth of sales, and then guess what? They're now in round B, round C, which equates to hundreds of millions that are pumped into the stock value of that organization.
So in layman's terms, let's say I've got a restaurant selling fish and chips.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm struggling. Yeah. I've just started it. It's a fledgling restaurant. Right. But there's a chef, right, who is, well known. He's coming and invested, right? Or he's part of the investment people that are investing in my restaurant. So he's now not only part of my restaurant, but he's also coming and eating out my restaurant. So he's helping me with my sales.
Yeah.
So you can see the ethics behind it, or the lack of.
Well, I'm not sure I'll go into the ethical side. It's just the way they're doing it, right? This is common practice across the whole industry. What I'm trying to shine a light on, Andrew, is this. I asked you before, what's the value of a 100K sale? Well, look at this. They've said that in round A, they need to get to 2 to 10 million.
Yep.
You've paved the way for what potentially can be a 1 billion to 2 billion pound evaluation down the 5-year mark of a company existing. It usually takes 2 years to get to that point. And it says, look, companies immediately jump to 100 to 200 million pounds evaluation. So if you've put 100K from that system that I was explaining earlier on, the cold calling, what's the value of that cold call? What's the value of bringing that customer to the plate? I say,
but if we look at this model here, then it makes it obsolete, doesn't it? It makes the business development salesperson obsolete, because people are going to buy, things that they've invested. Yeah, if I've got Apple shares, I'm going to go and buy Apple products. Yeah, I'm not going to go and spend my money on Google. And this is exactly what's happening here, but obviously on a startup scale.
Yeah.
And and as a salesperson, imagine you're a salesperson and you're at an event or you're doing a cold call and you've spoken to this CISO and you've had an amazing conversation. You've got, you've both got the same dog, or you love driving, or whatever it is, right? You've built this relationship up, right? But in the background, right, little do you know, there's no chance he's buying your product because he's got investment in a product that you're competing with.
It's happened to me twice already, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, it's not doom and gloom. I'm coming on the angle was, look, man, if you're bringing these customers, we've all done it before, Andrew, right? You're a bloody hero, right? Like, yes, you are valuable, but there are these clogs in the background that can sometimes eclipse your work.
Yeah.
Plow on, continue being valuable, but know that this is here in the background. That's what this podcast is all about. It's about shining the light on work life, right? But part of work life is understanding that sometimes, you know, everything that meets the eye is not what it is, right? And you can be an incredible work. We are right now in a market where just because you do well doesn't mean that you're necessarily valuable to the grand scheme of things. Did you understand? And sometimes you are very valuable, but that value is underpaid, is underplayed, not underpaid, right? Because we have already said that tech jobs are well paid in comparison to other industries. So no one here is you know, playing violins, right? But yeah, Andrew, it's been an interesting one. But anyway, with that said, thank you very much for your wisdom, Andrew. It's always a good one. And let's close this with our soundtrack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last closing thoughts?
No, just, actually, you know what? I know today's been a bit of a mismatch and whatever, and there's bits that we're going to have to look at and streamline from the final version. But the last thought is really for anybody, you know, looking at either changing jobs or starting off at jobs or whatever, and they're in the sales sector, is don't be afraid to ask questions. There's always going to be a section there where they say to you at the interview, anything you'd like to ask, right? Don't be afraid to ask, because a lot of those responses will mean one or two things: that you either decide that if you get the job that it's right for you or not, but also it will at least give you that if you decide to take that job, at least you'll go in with your eyes wide open, knowing that, you know, you may not have a pipeline to take over. You may have a territory that's completely greenfield. There may not be a BDR, so you'll know that you've got the work to do. And I think if a company is honest and tells you that, then at least that's a good start. It's the ones that say to you, oh, no, yeah, we got lots of customers and that, and then you look online and stuff that you can't find things. I just think, you know your worth, and then measure yourself.
Yeah.
You know, don't wait for the sales manager to give you targets and whatever. Even if you're working from home, measure yourself on a daily, weekly basis. And you know, and just go by that.
Yeah, that sounds to me, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, if you are listening. And we'll leave you with the they're probably not. We'll leave you with the closing sounds of our soundtrack. Bye everyone. Take care. Fourth episode done.